Hi, welcome to Dwayne's Guitar Lessons. I'm instructor Dwayne Jenkins, and in this video lesson, we're going to be discussing how to change strings on your guitar, especially on this kind here is a guitar with a floating tremolo. What that means is that the bridge, or the tremolo, what you want to call it, goes up, and it also comes back down as well. Okay, and it's called a floating tremolo because it's suspended by the strings on top, and it's suspended by springs in the back, so it kind of floats like this, okay? And this is called a double locking system, which means that the strings are locked here at the bridge, and they're also locked here at the nut, okay? So it keeps it for better tuning. So let's take a look at that now. Okay, so here we're going to start with the way I do it. What I like to do first of all, since this is a floating bridge, okay, which means it has a cavity that you can make it go up, go down. Okay, you have different types of bridges. You have your set bridge, floating bridge. This is a floating bridge, and what I like to do when I take the strings off, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can either do it by replacing one string at a time so that the bridge stays in place, but the problem with that is conditioning the fretboard. So what I like to do is I like to take something like this, or a set of strings, or it's just something, doesn't really matter, and I like to prop it underneath the bridge like this, okay? It doesn't hurt the guitar, doesn't hurt the finish or anything. It just kind of sets the bridge there so that it stays in position, okay? And that way, I can take the strings off and I can condition the fretboard, and then when I put the strings back on, it'll be a lot easier to tune it, okay? So that's the first step that I like to do. I'd recommend you do something like that as well, okay? Okay, now step 2, I take the I usually have this with me. This is your Allen wrench that you got to have when you have a locking nut. And I always have it with the guitar myself, but you know, you don't have to do that. Just make sure you have it somewhere you can always get to it. And I usually take and I'll undo the locking nut, okay? And I don't usually take them all the way off. You can if you want. I usually don't do that. I just loosen them, okay? So that's the second thing I do, and I'll just set that aside over there, okay? Now what I do is I start to loosen up the strings. Now you can do this by hand like I'm doing it here. Okay. Or you can use a string winder. If you have a string winder, those work pretty good. It makes the process a little bit faster. So maybe for this particular video we'll just use a string winder. It goes on here. And we'll just go like this with it. It loosens the strings. Okay. Just for a little bit faster removal of the strings. And then what I do is I go ahead and just take them off the post. Next step, I take some clippers and just clip off those ends like that. Throw those in the trash. A couple strings at a time if you'd like to, just for easier quickly. You can do this however you'd like. This is just how I do it. So I can just grab this string here. Clip those off there. Then I pull them through the nut. Okay. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to unlock it from the bridge, which means we got to take the Allen wrench. This is why it's important to have this Allen wrench. It's a 3mm Allen wrench, so if you have one of these and you don't have an Allen wrench, that's what kind you need, 3mm. You put it in there and you loosen that. You do it for all 6 of them. Okay, I'm trying to keep my hand out of the way here so you can see what I'm doing. This gets a little tricky, so you got to have a little patience with it. These are a little bit more high maintenance than your normal bridges. Okay. And as you can see, if you kind of look up close, you can tell the screw comes in here. This is your block, and it's what? As you can look at that string, you can tell it's been clamped in there. Okay, so now we're going to clean the fretboard, and since I can't get the whole fretboard in the shot, I'm just going to show you how to clean a little bit of it. I use this stuff right here. This is Guitar Honey, I guess. It's just a little fretboard cleaner. You can get this on my website. I'll leave you a description of the link below. There's all kinds of different ones you can use, no big deal. This is just a spray-on one. I just spray it on the fretboard like that. I'll do it on the whole fretboard. Then I'll take a cloth, you know, just any type of cloth, and just gently wipe it down, okay? Now you don't want to put too much on there, you don't want to saturate the wood or anything, but just spray it on there to condition the fretboard, get the oil to soak in, and this really helps to take care of the wood on your fretboard, okay? Make it nice and shiny. Alright, so now we have the strings off, we got it all nice clean, nice and shiny. Still got our thing there to hold up the bridge. The fretboard's been conditioned. The headstock's been shined up a little bit as well. Now it's time to put on the strings. Now one of the things I like to do before I put on the strings is I like to lube up right here. Put a little bit of lubrication right here where the string goes over the middle, the saddle on the bridge. Okay, so the string's going to go in this hole right here, and it's going to ride over this and then go above the pickups onto the fretboard and everything. So right here I like to lube this up a little bit. I use this stuff called Big Ben's Nut Sauce. It's pretty popular. A lot of the big time worldwide players use this stuff, and it really helps to keep your stuff lubricated, helps you stay in tune, and keeps your strings sounding good as well. So this little applicator, it's like a little, you just push on it, and it has, as you can see, a little bit of that stuff's coming out. I just like to put it right there, and I'll put it on all of these right here. Okay, put it right there, maybe a little bit on here. Wherever the string touches the metal, that's a good place to lube it up. And you can use whatever you want, you know. Some guys you've seen use WD-40, stuff like that. It doesn't really matter what you use, but this is pretty popular stuff. So I like using this. I like putting it right in there where the string touches. Just a little bit, you don't need too much, just a hair. And it'll really help to keep that lubricated, okay? Okay, so now it's time to turn on the strings. And as you see, what I like about the Super Slinky strings, if you haven't seen that, check out my video on that. I like these Ernie Ball Super Slinkies. These are the kind that I like to use. Gauge 9 through 42, they work really well with these kind of guitars. Now, in the end, what's great about them is they come individually wrapped, like this. Now, when they come individually wrapped, they have this ball on the end of them. Now, on a regular set bridge, you want that ball because that ball is what holds the string in the bridge. But for these particular bridges, since we clamp them in, we don't want that ball. We want to take that ball, I want to clip it off there, and I usually just clip it off there at the end where about right there. Clip that off there, and then we're going to take that end of it, I'm going to put right through there. Doesn't have to go too far, but just a little bit in there. And then we're going to take our trusty Allen wrench, I'm going to tighten that up, and clamp it in there, okay? You want to be kind of careful. These are, you don't want to strip the nut or anything, just want to snug it put it in there real snug. Make sure it clamps the string so the string doesn't come out, okay? And what I like to do is I like to bend the string a little bit like that. So that way it gets a good bend, okay? So, do that with all 6 strings. Alright, so now we have them all on the bridge like we had, and then this last step here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the end of the string here, going to feed it through the nut, going to feed it under the string retainer. That's what this little thing is, it's called a string retainer. Now these are a little bit more maintenance than a regular kind of guitar, but if you have some patience, and then just feed it through the post, okay, just like that. See that? Now what I like to do is something my friend Anthony taught me that really seems to help keep the guitar in tune and keep the strings from breaking, is instead of just wind it around the post like I normally used to do, what I do now is I pull it all the way through like this. This is a good idea for you to try. And I pull it back enough to get this around, and pull this around and do it like that. And pull the string. And then twist the post. There we go. So I'm holding the string down and I'm twisting the post. And what that does is it clamps the string. Okay, so now I have the strings all on there. I still have to clip them off and everything, but I wanted to show you a little bit how the system kind of works here. If you look at this string right here, you can tell it's kind of clamped in there. It's got a winding on top and a winding on the bottom, and with this coming through, it kind of clamps it onto the post. Now when you have a locking nut, you don't really need to worry about that so much, but it's kind of added security. But it works very, very well for a guitar that doesn't have a locking nut. Like if you have a Fender Strat or something like that, and it doesn't have the locking nut, it kind of gives you an opportunity to lock it at the post. Okay, so now when I clip the strings off, what I usually do is I leave a little bit on there, and I just bend it down. Okay, as you can see. It's kind of nice and neat, and it gets out of the way. And now that we have all the strings on, we can just take this piece and just pop it out. Boom, bridge is right there. Now it's actually sticking up a little bit high, but I think when it comes to tuning it, it's going to be a little bit easier because it's not in the cavity. Okay, so you just got to bring it down a little bit. I just do that with the strings. As you can see, it's coming down a little bit. And now, as you can see, it's pretty much where it was before when we first started. And that's why I like to do it that way, because now when it comes to tuning it, it's going to be a lot easier. Okay, now one of the things I like to do with the guitar strings as well, after I put them on, is I like to kind of bend them a little bit like this. Not too much, but just a little bit, okay? Kind of bend them a little bit, bend them up off the fretboard, get them used to kind of being on the string, on the guitar itself, okay? Stretches them out a little bit. This helps them not to break when you go to tune them up. Okay, see how I'm doing that? So that's a good idea as well. Not too much, you don't want to break the string, especially with these lighter strings. But just kind of, you know, bring them up like that. And that's what I love about these super sticky strings. They don't break like this. Tuner here, you're not sure about using this? Go ahead and check out my video on that. I highly suggest you get one of these. These are awesome. You can see the letters real easy. Everything you can see real easy. Nice big display, has nice colors to it. Okay, looks like we're out of tune, so let's tune it up, okay? Alright, so now we have fully in tune. E. Got the E's looking pretty good. The B. Our G string. Like that's where it's supposed to be. The D. The A. And then the E. Now, once that's done, then what you gotta do is relock the nut. So you get out your trusty Allen wrench. This would be your best friend if you have one of these guitars. And you lock the nut. Then you want to retune it with your fine tuners at the bridge. And this is what locks it. It's called a double locking system, if you ever heard that term. Which means that it's locked at the nut. It's also locked at the bridge. Okay. So now. Okay, there we have it. How to change your guitar strings. Now use those tips that'll really help you out a lot. Especially if you have a guitar like this with the floating tremolo. As you can see. My recommendation is play the guitar a little bit, use the whammy bar, push on it, pull on it, and get the strings that used to being on the fretboard, and then retune it with your snark tuner, whatever kind of tuner you prefer to use. I would recommend some of these clip-on ones. These snark ones are really nice. And make sure you got your super slinky guitar strings on there, and you'll be ready to rock. And if you need a place to find them, you can find them on my website. And once again, as always, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know and I'll guide you in the right direction, alright? So until our next lesson, you take care. See you then.